You're listening to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast, the only podcast for active, athletic, and adventurous women and those who aspire to be. We've got your back as you navigate the ups and the downs of motherhood, midlife, and menopause. I'm your host, Alison and Kim, here to remind you that female isn't fragile. I'm a strength, conditioning, and nutrition coach who's trained hundreds of women to achieve their goals to get fit, lift heavy, go the distance, and feel like a badass in every area of their lives. Each week, you'll hear from me and some of our awesome guests as we educate and empower you during each stage of your fitness journey, whether you're already crushing it, fighting to get back out there, or starting from day one. So friends, let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. Today, I am joined by Kim Schlag. And I'm so excited to share this episode with you because we're talking about some of the specific habits that many of us as women have picked up in our 20s and 30s that are working against us in our 40s. Now, this is a really important conversation because I hear it all the time. I'm not doing anything differently in terms of diet and exercise, and I still keep gaining weight. So if that's you, you're really going to want to listen up here because we break down why your old habits just ain't cutting it anymore and why you're not getting the results that you're after. But before we dive in, let me share a bit about Kim. She is a personal trainer and a nutrition coach who came to fitness later in life. Kim spent the better part of 2 decades yo-yo dieting and ending up utterly confused and struggling with obesity. In her early 40s, she finally discovered that the secret hack she'd been looking for all those years really wasn't so secret after all. She totally transformed her body and mind through proper nutrition and strength training, and now helps women in midlife all over the world get strong and heal their relationship with food and their bodies through her challenges and her one-on-one coaching. And I love that she is straight up and keeps it simple. So let's get into the episode. Welcome, Kim. Thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Alison, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you and I have been following each other on Instagram for a few years. And what I love is that you are no bullshit and your advice is always so practical, where you're really emphasizing the most effective basics. And it's really just so flippin' refreshing because the landscape for women over 40 is now being bombarded with solutions and hacks. And it all just feels really similar to the way that we came up, where our approach to diet and exercise was really about the search for some missing key, whether that's some fat burning supplement or a new hormone balancing smoothie or the perfect diet, or a boutique fitness craze that promises to be life-changing and then never really delivers. So I really appreciate that your content is preaching simplicity and not being carried away by fads and marketing claims.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. It all stems from the fact that I was that person for a really long time searching for the magic bullet. I knew I was missing something. Like, what was it? Where, like, maybe it's this diet. Dr. Oz just talked about this supplement. Must be that. I'm missing something. And that is why I keep gaining weight. And, at one point I struggled with obesity for a good 6 to 8 years. And I just knew that it was because I was missing this special thing, right? And none of that was true. And so now I am definitely out there being the voice of like anti that. It's not that, lady. There is nothing. There is nothing secret that you're looking for. The stuff that actually works is just the stuff when it comes down to it, that you're like, that's really that. I don't want to be.
Today, you and I are going to go there. We are going to talk about some of the weight loss habits that we as women, Gen X women especially, picked up in our 20s and 30s that are really actually working against us in our 40s. So this is a phenomenon that I see a lot in my midlife clients. And I'm sure you see even more of it than I do, where people are just like, I learned all of this wrong. Everything I learned is wrong, and I wish that I could go back. So we're just going to get right into it. Are you ready to dive in?
I am so ready. Bring it on.
We are going to start on the topic of nutrition habits, things that we learned in our 20s and 30s about nutrition and eating. What do you got? What are you seeing?
So I think one of the most basic things is we really did not learn about food and nutrition and what it actually does. So before we even get to what's the BS we learned, there's this black hole of information that somehow growing up in our education system and just general knowledge passed on from our parents and our elders did not get to us. Things like what's a calorie? And how does that impact me? Because ladies, it's not just about dieting, right? It's just not what a calorie is. And oh, what do you mean that carbs? That's our body's preferred energy source. Most people are like, what do you mean? I thought carbs is something I should be afraid of. So basic nutritional information that doesn't even take a long time to transmit. We would just have this black hole. And what took the place of nutrition education was really quick fix diet that it could manipulate certain factors. And in the short term, and I'm going to put this in quotes that no one can see, it would work, but we didn't learn anything. We didn't understand anything. And it wasn't even the special hack that we were trying that was working. It was the fact that we got ourselves into a calorie deficit. We didn't need these like 50 different circus tricks to get there, but we didn't understand that because of that lack of basic nutrition education.
Yeah.
And
I feel like we came up in an era where we learned to diet, but we did not
Yes.
learn to eat properly.
Exactly. That's exactly it. We did not learn how to fuel our body just for daily life, let alone anything physical we might want to pursue. And what we did learn is that nutrition equaled, how do I make myself smaller? And if we can even take a step back, where did we get the idea that we all need to be pursuing weight loss? That was just a given. I try really hard to think back, but as far as I can remember in my teenage years, I had the impression that I needed to manipulate my body to look smaller. At no point was there any other, that was just the baseline assumption. I needed to lose weight. And as a teenager, when I look back, in no way was I overweight at all. But I grew up in the era of the supermodels in the 1980s. And so in my mind, ideal woman, which is definitely my goal, right? That was there in my mind. I need to be aspiring for that. And the tools to do that is 1000% weight loss. So I have to diet. And none of that was true. I did not have excess body fat. And I can see that now. If I wanted to change anything, really what I wish somebody had told me is, here are some dumbbells. Here's what you can do with them. I needed to have strength trained. And so somehow we just start from this baseline point of, I need to get smaller. I need to look like these women. And that informs what we're going to do, which is we are going to diet. And then all the people trying to make money off of us with, here are 90 different ways to say the same thing, which is get into a calorie deficit, but we're going to do it really extreme. And we're going to make it sound jazzy and stick in your brain. And it'd be something that you pay me for.
And there's going to be some shtick to it, like the cabbage diet. It's going to be so simple because you just have to follow these rules. And this is what you're going to eat. And it's very prescriptive. And all you have to do is check the box. And it just totally negates the fact that we all have a lot going on in our lives. We can't eat prescriptively for the rest of our lives. And there's no fun in that. And that's just not sustainable.
But we crave that. We crave that simple, like, here, do the Special K diet. Just eat Special K twice a day and your problems are solved. And that sounds like a great idea because we are busy. And so, like, great. But in reality, that doesn't work. Frankly, I think Special K is delicious, but not because it helps me lose weight. And I want to eat half the box to fill me up.
Yes.
But it feels like what we need is to have something simple.
Yeah.
But it definitely
It's an answer.
It's an answer.
It's that thing outside of ourselves that we're looking for that's missing. This is the way to eat to get to that.
One of the things that I would say is if you think a good way to lose weight involves any set of rules, you're probably barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
Like, there are general principles, but anything that's got like a list of rules, you're probably not in the spot that you want to be.
Yeah, agreed. And anything that includes anything that's mixing whole food groups and having you rely on whole other food groups. You mentioned the supermodel era, and it was well known during that era that they'd relied on the 3 C's: caffeine, cigarettes, and cocaine. A lot of them were talked about. That's how I was able to be this thin. And so it led into one of these other ones that I see in a lot of the female population over 40 that I work with, where they're going most of the day without eating anything and they're living on coffee and trying to see how long in the day they can go before they eat anything. And, oh, but if I eat breakfast, I get hungry. And I'm like, you're a human being. You're supposed to be hungry. You're supposed to have hunger.
It's so interesting you brought that up because just this week in my group coaching program, there's about 50 women in there. And one of them started this conversation and there was a bunch of them piling in like, yeah, me too. All talking about how they don't get hungry. And mostly what they do is drink coffee. And I'm like, hold up. What do we mean that we're just drinking coffee all day? And they're not making the connection that they're relying on that because they think that they shouldn't be hungry. And so they think that they're using this coffee to be like, how long can I go without having to eat the food? Because in their mind, somehow that's going to equal weight loss. That usually doesn't work because usually what ends up is by the end of the day, we're ravenously hungry. And in a small window of time, we can go through way more calories than if we had just had like a breakfast that not only satisfied our nutrition needs, but also satisfying to eat and something delicious. And then we did the same thing at lunch. And the calories could actually be lower. That does take work to figure out what those meals might be. But over time, once you've put in that groundwork, you have this list of foods that you know you love, that keep you satisfied, that help you with whatever your goal is at the moment. And it's not like you have to constantly redo that work. But the work of learning that is way harder than, you know what, I'm going to drink 5 cups of coffee and try not to eat anything.
Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because with women who do this, a lot of them report, I don't eat that much. This is their
Yes.
interpretation. This is how it feels to them. I don't eat very much. But when you actually sit down and you look at what they're eating, when they actually write it down, then you see it's essentially like a binge at the end of the day
Mhm.
where they feel so ravenous that their biochemistry is screaming at them to
Mhm.
eat the fastest, most dense things with calories in them as possible. And they're easily able to plow through 2,500, 3,000 calories in one sitting. It
Without
feels,
it feeling like that. So
yep,
they still feel like I didn't eat that much
yep,
all day from when they woke up at 6 in the morning until 7 at night when they start eating again. They didn't eat that much. And
yep,
even that food they might eat might not be a big quantity because they're eating
no,
more of this hyper palatable food
yep,
that's really
yep.
calorie dense. And so it still has this feeling of I didn't eat that much. Why am I gaining weight?
Yes, yes. So you feel deprived
Yeah.
and you're gaining weight on top.
Yeah. It leads to this idea that they're broken. Like
Yeah.
there's clearly something wrong with my body.
Something's wrong with my metabolism or my
Mhm.
hormones or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
And another one that I see is focusing specifically on the calories. I remember in the 90s and in the 2000s, Weight Watchers had come in and done a lot of these collaborations where there were like certain points for this package. And so everything was packaged to be like a certain number of calories. And there was this heavy focus on only calories matter. And from a weight loss perspective, calorie deficit, calories in, calories
Yeah.
out, right? There's thermogenics. But from a fullness and satisfaction perspective, if I had sat down and just ate a whole bunch of Oreo thins and only counted the calories that were in them, I would
Mhm.
feel hungry all the time, even though
Yeah.
I hit my calorie limit. So, like you said, the nutritional and education of like, yes, a calorie is a calorie from a weight loss perspective, but from a nutritional perspective, from a fullness and satisfaction perspective, they are not the same.
Yeah. And that's why I'm really not a fan of 100-calorie packs. None of us eat one. Like, they're just like a nice little handy way to grab a couple because 100 calories does nothing.
No.
It does nothing. 100 calories, I don't want just 100-calorie pack. And so I think that's a terrible invention. And all the Weight Watchers points, I think, really screwed a lot of women up because they, again, it comes back to a complete fundamental misunderstanding about food.
Yeah.
And I went through this when I did Weight Watchers. Ladies, there's probably not a diet you can list that I
Me
did not
too.
do back in the day. And so I did Weight Watchers. And I remember being mortally afraid of donuts because when I looked at the points in a donut, it was like 3/4 of my points for the day. And it was not till years later when I finally started understanding calories that I was like, wait a minute, Dunkin' Donuts was like 260 calories. That is not 3/4 of my calories in a day. If I wanted to, which I don't, but if I wanted to, I could have a donut every day
Yes.
and lose weight.
Yes.
But that did not make sense to me based on what they told me it was worse in Weight Watchers. And if you're a person who's counted points, it does not give you a good education on actually the energy content of food and what it may or may not do for you.
No, and it basically takes all the foods that you love and that bring you maybe some joy. Christmas cookies are my thing. You take them away from me and I don't want to live longer. I just don't. So for you to put them on the other side of my goals and my happiness and say you can't have any Christmas cookies. And a lot of that's like in the culture. It's like me growing up, my mom and I, some of my best memories of my mom and I baking Christmas cookies. And when you look at these diet programs where they draw a line in the sand, these are bad food and these are good foods. And it leaves no room for our humanness and to learn how to have foods periodically and not have it be all or nothing, right? I'm being good as long as I don't have any cookies. And then the moment you have cookies, now you're bad. And now it's like, you might as well just eat them all. So when you put them on the good or the bad list, you never learn how to let everything have a place in your life.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple of problems with it. One, the idea of assigning morality to food is like good or bad, big problem. And ladies, if you hear yourself thinking that, it is a sign for you to just stop and observe and be like, oh, tell myself more about that. I just said the cookies are bad. I should think about that a little bit more and talk that through a little bit. Because, like, where did that come from? And are cookies bad? So, really, if you notice yourself talking about food in terms of good or bad, and I don't mean taste, like that was a good soup, but as in what effect they might have on your body, take note and do some deeper thinking. And the other thing, it does not take into account that that's just not really how this works. We need to look at our diet as a whole, not individual foods, which is why I friggin' hate all the social media stuff where it's like, some dude in the store with his shirt off yelling about how this food is so bad. It just is not how this stuff works. Everything comes down to its place in your overall diet. So sure, if all you ate, Allison, is Christmas cookies,
Totally.
that would be bad for your health.
Totally.
And your weight and all things about how you feel.
Yes.
But most people are not just eating the one thing that people are deeming bad. And so the idea is, where do I want to and how can I make place for this thing in my overall dietary pattern that feels good and helps me reach my goals, and where does it fit? And all things can have a place to fit.
Yes. But you're right to your earlier point about that takes more work than just having the rules. So I get why people go for it because it's nice to have decisions being made for me. My bandwidth is released. And I've worked with women through all of these issues over the years. And it is a time consuming, difficult process, but it's sustainable. In the long run, you have actually learned skill
Yeah.
and you've learned systems and you have support in place to actually navigate all of the gray areas. So you don't have to live in the all or nothing, black and white diet culture, right? So, what
Absolutely.
else do you see that women do with nutrition?
Just thinking that their requirements for their body are much less than they are is a
Yeah.
big deal. Ladies, you can eat a lot more food to maintain your weight than you think. We're really skewed. Women are so skewed
Yeah.
thinking about how much energy it actually takes to just maintain. If you did nothing and you just laid on your bed all day long, which doesn't that sound nice, the energy requirements for your body would still be much higher than you're probably thinking for a life filled with like activity like you
Yeah.
do, even if you're not highly active with like sports or lifting, but just the daily activities of your life, you need more calories for that. So that fundamental missing piece of how much energy does my body require is a big one. Relying too heavily on fake foods, I think, is a
Yeah.
big one. Like
Mhm.
trying to live your life on supplements, potions, pills, that kind of stuff. Look, and definitely have a place for supplements in my life
Totally.
and in my clients' lives, particularly protein supplements, because until recent years, most women had no idea how important protein was. And
Yeah.
even now, I would say probably three-quarters or more of the women who come to me had no idea that they were eating a low protein diet.
No.
They thought
Nope.
they were doing fine because they've
Yep.
heard that it's important. Thinking that there's a magic number of meals you should eat in a day, whether that's I should skip breakfast and only eat 2 meals, or whether that's I have to eat 6 small meals in a day. There is no magic meal pattern. There's a meal pattern that might be a better fit for you and your lifestyle versus others, but there is no magic meal pattern. And really just wanting to outsource nutrition to something outside of our
Mhm.
own brain and
Yeah.
responsibility. And having an idea of the fact that our thought and our outlook, our mindset has really colored the decisions that we have come to make for decades at this point. And that is going to be part of the solution. Part of you learning how to, if your goal is to lose weight, let's say it is, which again, not everybody. So, first question, do I really need to lose weight? But to be able to permanently keep that off is going to be changing what's going on up in your brain.
Totally. I've told many of my clients over the years, a lot of people come to me thinking they have a diet and exercise problem, but they really have a mindset problem. It is an implementation problem. And that comes back to mindset and behavior change. That's the missing part of a lot of the programs that are good in the short term because they give people the prescription. But in the long term, they miss the mark because you haven't taught anybody how to apply it in their own life and pivot when things are out of their control or don't work. And a lot of the work that I'm sure you do in your groups too and in your coaching is helping women develop systems and strategies to make this more permanent. So it's not
Yeah.
just white knuckle your way through until you can't anymore and then find another diet to get on.
Yeah, because we really have this idea that it can be quick, that we can do a 30-day shred or P90X, 90 days, and all of our problems are solved. And just focusing on how disciplined and dedicated can it be for this short period of time so I can get back to how I lived before. But the
Yeah.
problem is how you were living before was the whole problem. And if you go back to that, you're going to end up here. And so changing fundamentally how you think about your body, how you think about food, your understanding of it, and also fundamentally changing your behavior patterns
Yes.
permanently, which doesn't say, hey, ladies, you need to be on a diet permanently. What it's
No.
saying is you need to switch your overall dietary pattern
Yes.
permanently. And there's no going back because what you've been doing, it hasn't been working for you.
Right. 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 And that's why you're asking me these questions. That's why you're here for coaching.
Yeah.
So that's a great segue because now let's talk about what does work for women over 40.
Yeah. So I work with women over 40, women in menopause, and they're always surprised when I talk about how the same things that worked for when I've had men I've worked with, I've had teenage boys I've worked with in the past, I've had women in their 20s, and the same basic biological principles are going to work for all of us. Okay.
Yeah.
What has happened, ladies, is that now that you're in your 40s, we've got a couple of additional hurdles that you might be facing. So maybe you're having symptoms of perimenopause that can really hamper your ability to do some of the basic things as simply as people without those symptoms can, because maybe you're low on sleep. Maybe you're really low on energy. You just overall feel terrible because you're having crazy bloody periods sometimes. And now you've got seasonal allergies and you're not sleeping well and your joints ache. So you're just not feeling good. And so that can be an additional hurdle. We also know that our body composition shifts as our estrogen declines, and we tend to store more of our excess body fat. Any excess body fat we do have, much of it is shifted to our midsection. So we look down and we're like, well, what happened there?
Hmm.
And so there comes this feeling of like, something has changed, and it has. right? But it's just where we tend to store that excess fat. It does go away in the same way as you lose fat anywhere else. Other things that have changed are, and you might not think it's true, ladies, but most likely you are moving a heck of a lot less now than you did at other times in your life. A lot of us spend more of our days not doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is sitting on our butts at our desks or in our car or wherever it is we switch our sitting posture to. We're just not moving as much as we did in other stages of our lives. Because, we're not in high school. We're not playing after school sports. We're not running around with our friends. We're not walking across our college campus. We're not running after toddlers anymore. A lot of us at this age, we're in a position in our career where we're very focused. We've climbed the rungs and we are busy. And a lot of us are busy with a computer, right? And so we're sitting a lot. And when we can help ourselves move more, wow, it makes a big impact. But again, this is the same for anybody else. You want to make sure that your energy out is appropriate. But for women of this age, I do find it's very impactful. So there's not a ton that's different. I think it is important to note that from what we know of the science, your metabolism has not declined. And that is such good news, ladies. So when you hear that, I don't want you to think she doesn't believe me. She does not believe that I'm gaining weight. I do believe you because it is happening and it's happening a lot. But what I'm saying is it is not because your metabolism has slowed or is broken. We have really good research to show that your metabolism is not even going to begin to slow until after age 60. And then it's going to be very, very small amounts. And so if you're in your 40s, if you're in your 50s, your metabolism has not slowed. This is fantastic news. So moving more can really help you. I'm going to give you my core 4 here, ladies. Eating the right amount of calories for your goals. If your goal is weight loss, we have to get you into a calorie deficit, which is simply eating fewer calories than your body needs to maintain its current weight. So that's big number 1. Number 2, eating enough protein. And it's not because protein is like a magical weight loss supplement. Protein helps you, 1, to stay full. 2, it helps with that body composition problem we're talking about. We start losing muscle at age 30, ladies, if we're not doing something to prevent losing muscle. And a lot of women are not doing things that it takes to prevent that muscle loss, which are lifting weights with intensity and eating enough protein. Most women are doing that. And so you've begun to lose muscle. When you are eating in a calorie deficit, so eating those fewer calories, your body is going to tend to lose even more muscle. And so we want to prevent that. So we want you to eat the right amount of calories. We want you to eat enough protein to support that muscle. We want you to move more. And 10,000 is not the magic number. That is a number that is a good number. It doesn't have to be that. I have women shoot for somewhere between 7,500 and 12,000. There's a lot of different reasons why they might be lower or higher. The main thing I want you to know is if you have no idea how much you're moving now, figure that out. Just get a cheap step tracker. Doesn't have to be expensive. Get yourself a cheap step tracker. See how much you're moving now and use that as a starting point. Don't just pick a random number and be like, Kim says I need 10,000 or 12,000 or 7,500. See where you're at now and start moving that up. Get at least to that 7,500 because from a health perspective, we do see that the bulk of the benefits in terms of living longer, living more healthfully as you age, we get the bulk of that by 7,500. So I'd shoot for that as your first baseline. But if you're getting 3,000, go to 3,500. Go to 4,000 and work your way up till you get to that 7,500. So moving it up. And then the other one is strength training. If you can do those 4 things consistently, ladies, you don't need any other special dietary advice. What you need is help figuring out how do I do those 4 things consistently? Because those are not easy things to do.
No. Hey, you. I wanted to press pause on this episode for a second to talk about your fitness goals. Those sweet dreams of being more active and feeling athletic and confident and doing epic, adventurous shit. Or maybe you just feel like you're getting older. Because we're all getting older. And you, like me, never want to give up on carrying all the groceries into the house in one shot or picking up that heavy Amazon box without worrying that you're going to throw your back out. I know you're busy. You're probably listening to this episode while multitasking. Oh yeah, I'm on to you. And the biggest thing that's stopping you from getting strong and fit is knowing how to use your workout time most effectively. Like exactly which exercises are worth your time, when to do them, and the number of sets and reps to get to your goals. You probably also tried other fitness apps and programs out there, only to feel like they weren't right for your needs. You want a program that has it all: strength, power, cardio, mobility, and recovery, all built right in without spending your whole life in the gym. And you want experienced coaches around to answer your questions and a community at your back to help you stay motivated and inspired. Look, I've been coaching women for a long time now, and the truth is that you don't need another fad diet or complicated, time-consuming workout routine to support you as you age. You just need to train smarter with simple, progressive workouts and a plan that's designed for your body and your life, whether you're navigating motherhood, midlife, or menopause. And if this sounds like exactly what you've been missing, I invite you to join Stronger 365, a progressive strength, power, and conditioning training membership for women like you who are ready to stop winging it and take their training to the next level with more structure and support. And the best part? This program has 3 different options, so you can choose your own fitness adventure based on your goals, how much time you have to train, and what equipment you have, whether you've got access to a full gym or, like me, work out at home. And it's run by me, Alison and my awesome team at Miles to Go Athletics. Head over to the show notes for all the details and to join our membership community. And as an FBG, your first 2 weeks are on me. And now, let's get back to the episode. So you mentioned some of the things that women can do that are really simple, not easy, to help with their fitness. So let's go back to that time period in our 20s and 30s when we were learning about exercise. We inherited a bunch of nonsense around food or lack of information around food and a lot of bad information around fitness as well. So what are some of the things that you're seeing they've learned or are doing in terms of their fitness that are not working for them anymore?
One of the big things is that women have been taught, especially women of our generation, to see exercise as a means to burn calories. And that is the road. Exercise equals burning calories.
Yep.
And that's 1, not the whole picture. And 2, not even a hopeful picture to whatever your goal is. Maintain your weight, lose your weight, get stronger. That's just not a helpful way to look at it. It's not the truth. Exercise does not need to be a tool to burn calories. If your goal is weight loss, we really want to focus on that on getting into that calorie deficit with your nutrition.
Yeah.
And then use exercise for multiple other things. Use exercise because it helps you feel good. It helps with your heart health, with your brain health. Overall, it's going to help with your longevity. And just being active is going to help you have a better, more fulfilling life. And so using exercise not to burn calories, punish ourselves, beat ourselves up for what we ate this morning or what we're planning on eating later tonight, but really using it as a tool to feel our best and be our healthiest. Specifically when we're talking about cardio, because most women, that's what they think of when they think of exercise. I need to do some cardio. I need to get sweaty. I need to keep track of how many calories I'm burning. And I would suggest, ladies, do not look and see how many calories you're burning, whether it's on a tracker that you're wearing on your wrist or whether it's the piece of equipment you're using. That is not a number that is useful to you because it's just wildly incorrect. We just have good research that shows that the numbers are inflated. So it's not even giving you a good number. It's just not useful. And it can really set you up for this relationship where exercise is a form of burning calories. It's a form of punishment for what you do.
Earning
with
your food,
paying for food.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too, it leads women to choose forms of exercise based on calorie burn, not necessarily based on what is best for their goals. And it's really a good point to bring up here too, because if you want to lose weight, we want to focus on the nutrition side. We want to focus on dialing that in, not trying to go burn a whole bunch of extra calories. And if we do dial that in on that side, then you can think about exercise as being a quality of life enhancer. Like you said, it just makes you feel better. It makes you able to play with your grandkids and walk up and down a flight of stairs, get up off the floor. All of these things are really what exercise is meant to add to our lives, not subtract from our lives, but to add to our lives.
Absolutely.
And not the way that I
Yeah, no, most of us weren't. And none of this is to say like, wow. So and I'm not saying in any way, ladies, that cardio is bad for fat loss, because that's a big message out there these days too, that you got to watch out because you're going to spike your cortisol if you're training too hard and then you're going to hold bunch of your fat. And that is absolutely not true.
No.
And cardio can certainly be a part of a weight loss plan. And a lot of my ladies do some cardio. It's not the big dial mover that you think it is. So I wouldn't focus your time and attention on it for the purpose of weight loss. I would focus time and attention on it because it's important for your health. But if your main goal is going to be weight loss, let's not focus on it for that purpose. But don't be afraid of it either. There's a lot of good that comes from doing cardio. I'm a newish runner. I've been running for about a year after a lifetime of believing this story in my brain that I'm not a runner.
Right.
And I decided a year ago, because I'm always teaching my clients about overcoming those limiting thoughts we have. And so I noticed that I would say, yeah, I'm not a runner. And I was like, hey, wait a minute. Maybe we should experiment just to see, do we even like running? And so I was set off on this quest to see, could I be a person who enjoys it? And I, in fact, am. And wow, it has just made such a difference in my mental health and how I feel about myself and like my cardio capacity, like walking upstairs and things I enjoy, like hiking. It's really helped with all of that. And so cardio can absolutely and should absolutely play a role in your life. Just don't use it as a big dial mover for weight loss.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the mistakes women have made too, is you just find one type of exercise you like and you just do that, whether it's Pilates, whether it's cardio, whether it's the class at the gym that a certain teacher teaches, to the exclusion of all other things. This is what I do. This is the type of exercise that I'm going to do. And instead of seeing that there are components of multiple forms of exercise that might together create a better quality of life for you. Because I've for a long time been in both the lifting world as a competitive lifter and I'm an ultra runner. So I've been at the extreme ends of both of these camps and seen how much they hated each other. Lifters were always like, running stats, and runners were always like,
You gotta choose the side.
like, and you're like in the middle going, hold on a second, it works together. If you did them together, you would all be happier. But this commitment to one type of exercise, I think, has really done a disservice to a lot of women to be able to create more variety in the way that we're moving. It is more enjoyable, and it just everything that enhances the other things. We don't have to get everything from one form of exercise.
Absolutely not. No, putting all those pieces together can really help you to just live a better life in your physical body.
Yeah. Yeah. And one that you brought up in your core four was strength training. This is one that we still struggle with a lot of women. I remember the little baby 3-pound weights that my mom always had around, and that was her strength training. And my version of strength training is a little bit different. It involves like barbells, but it's interesting because a lot of women are really resistant to lifting heavy. And we know from the research that lifting heavy is relative, is really important. And it's not the low weights, high reps. So talk to me a little bit about the advice that you give women around strength training.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, ladies, first of all, I am like the world's biggest proponent of strength training. I am not talking superfluously when I tell you that it changed my life. That's not some weirdo thing to say because it did. It changed how I felt about myself. I was 43 when I first started lifting weights, besides doing something like cardio with weights in my hand. I'd done some Jillian Michaels. But when I actually went to a gym and had somebody teach me how to use weights and lift them, and over the course of several weeks, it's like this light bulb went off in my brain. And I realized that I was a strong person. I started being able to do things outside of the gym that I'd never done before because I realized I was a strong person who could do really hard things. Like I'd been taking singing lessons because I like to sing, but I'm really bad at it. And my singing teacher had been after me forever to sing this solo. And I was like, I am not doing that. And when she finally asked again, after I'd been lifting for 6-8 weeks, and I was like, I can do that. I just lifted 45 pounds and I couldn't do that 4 weeks ago. I'm pretty sure I can figure this out. And so it changed how I saw myself. And I didn't even know that I had thought of myself as a weak person before, but I had. And so it fundamentally shifted how I felt about myself. And I see this all the time with women, the confidence that it builds in them when they see that they are physically strong and they had no idea. It's one of my most favorite things in life. So I just am such a proponent from that perspective. Also, if you're looking for the fountain of youth, what's going to help you live a long time in a healthy way, it's strength training, baby. If you're 80 and you want to be able to bend down, tie your shoe, stand back up, reach down and pick up a heavy suitcase, lift up and take something out of your cupboards without getting hurt, you need strong bones and strong muscles. And the tool that's going to give that to you is going to be strength training. And as it so happens, ladies, the tool that's also going to give you the physical look you might be looking for, if you're like, I want to look toned, it's strength training. That's the tool to do it. So it happens to have all of these positive effects. It can help you feel confident. It can help you be able to function better for the long haul, and it can help you aesthetically. So it really is just this power tool.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. It's one of those things that when they experience it, when they let themselves try it, they start to feel it. It's the resistance to it from the beginning that really is holding at arm's length all of the things that you're really looking for on the other side of that discomfort. Just commit to trying it. Go through the process, see how it feels, and then make your decision.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of reasons that women are a little hesitant about it. One, it is very new. Two, it feels like it's the domain of big men. When I first started going to the gym before I actually started lifting weights, the area where the big weights were with the dumbbells and the barbells, I call that the man cave, which is really funny to me. Like, what? Women belong there. And I couldn't believe it. The first day, the person who was teaching me, he's like, okay, we're going to lift over here. And I was like, in the man cave? Can we not pin somewhere else? And so we're intimidated because it doesn't feel like the domain of a woman. I think that's changing, but I think for women of my generation, still it's in there. We've been told that we might look bulky. So that's another fear going on. People are afraid they're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And that one is so interesting to me because in reality, you are far less likely to get injured in daily life if you have strong bones and strong joints. And the tool to get you that is the very thing that you're afraid is going to injure you.
Yes.
You are far less likely to get injured if we can get you strength training appropriately.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of reasons that women are a little more hesitant to try it. And it feels easier to just take a class versus learn how to lift weights. But once you get past the beginning learning curve, you get somebody to help you get past that learning curve, it's not that hard to understand how to do. There's a pretty short list of like basic exercises that you can do for the rest of your life and variations of them. And once you learn them, you're good to go. Obviously, it's hard to do a workout. Like every time I go to the gym, it's hard. If it's not hard, it's not working, but hard to do. No, it's not like confusing and I don't know what I'm doing. You will learn that way faster than you can imagine.
Oh, yeah. And then as long as you have more weights, heavier weights, you keep progressing as long as you want to
Yeah.
progress. You don't need to
Yeah.
learn a harder version of it. You just need to put more
Yeah.
weight on it. It
Yeah.
really can be that simple. Women come to me for coaching, say, I haven't changed anything about what I'm doing. And I just keep gaining weight. It must be my metabolism. There's something I'm missing because I've been doing this my whole life and it's worked. And now it's not. Talk me through your approach to that.
The first thing is the education piece. And we've talked about a couple of these parts about what's happening with our metabolism and what's not. The other part we haven't talked about is what's happening hormonally, because a lot of women really do feel like this big button is pushed once they hit perimenopause. And it's like that is preventing me from losing weight or causing me to gain weight. And the research we have now does not show that menopause itself is causing weight gain. Women who are in perimenopause and menopause also happen to be women who are aging. Those two things go together. And we do see that as women age, we do tend to gain some weight. And that does appear to be because we're not moving as much. Our body composition is changing. Okay. The first big fact is getting it out of your brain that it's either your metabolism or menopause that is stopping you from losing weight. When you can be like, okay, that is not a reality. That's not the cause behind this. That can really help a lot because the things that are happening are actually in your control. And it can absolutely feel like you have changed nothing. I know that it can feel like that when you actually dig in. And I would spend some time really getting a baseline of what am I eating across a week? Because if you do the thing we were talking about earlier, where you don't eat very much during the day, what's happening at night and what is happening on the weekends? Because you can absolutely eat very low calorie for 4 or 5 days, 4.5 days to get to Friday at 5 o'clock. And then you can absolutely over a course of a week, shift into a calorie surplus just by how much you eat Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, and eat, but also drink. Yeah, there's a lot of women who've grown up in this mommy wine culture thing and have come to the point where they're drinking quite a bit of alcohol, which has all kinds of issues, but certainly weight gain is one of them. I do think it's cool. There's this kind of curiosity around not drinking these days that's going around, and people are interested in experimenting with that. And I think that's helpful for women in lots of ways, but one, certainly, to have an experiment like that to see what impact is that having on my weight gain. So really get a clear picture, whether you're going to use a pen and paper, whether you're going to get an app, macros first or lose it, do something and just track what you're doing now. Don't even shoot for certain goals. See how much am I eating and notice things like how many times a week do I eat out and how much alcohol am I drinking? A really baseline. And then on the other end, get a really good baseline of how much you're moving. Get that step tracker and see where you're at. Both of these things are likely going to surprise you. The women I work with are across the board stunned when they see how little they're moving and how much they're eating and how little protein they're eating. And then they're like, I thought I was a pretty healthy eater. And then they're like, I actually do not eat what I thought I ate because we have a little bit of amnesia around a lot of foods. We don't realize how much we're like picking and tasting throughout the day. And so getting a good baseline of those things is going to really be eye-opening for you. And then taking the steps to actually enact behaviors that we know work. Those core four that I told you, eating in a calorie deficit, eating higher protein, moving enough steps, and strength training, and seeing what happens. Because I'm telling you what's going to happen. Because across the board, what happens is women stop gaining weight. And if your goal is to just stop gaining weight, great. If your goal is to lose weight, great. Both of those things can happen with that. I promise you, it is not mysterious. You are not mysteriously gaining weight because of menopause or age. Your behavior has shifted. And also, you're seeing the consequences of poor patterns of eating that you've likely had your whole life. Because we have grown up in this, we didn't get great education around nutrition. And so we've done a lot of eating fast food and eating hyper palatable food and being highly sedentary. If you're eating the standard American diet and you've been doing that since your 20s, you're starting to see the effects of it now. But you can change those patterns now, and you could literally be in the best shape of your life in your 40s, in your 50s, in your 60s. I know because I've done it and I've watched other women do it. I would never in a million, if somebody's like, oh, you could have back the same body you had when you were 18, I'd be like, please, no, thank you. I don't need that. I'm in way better shape now than I ever was then.
Yeah. Yeah. And it'll feel a lot of women very abrupt that all of these changes come on. But really, like you said, it's an accumulation. It's slowly been creeping up. And while your calories may be gradually increasing, there's a decrease in how much activity. And so it's a really slow progression to get there. But it does feel really abrupt. And we are dealing with a population of women through perimenopause who have additional challenges to exercise, the brain fog, the fatigue, the symptoms that they're having are making it more difficult. So there are definitely some challenges that come at this time, but that's not the reason why it's happening. It's a good thing because, like you said, I can't control that I'm getting older, that I'm in menopause, but I can control how much I'm moving, what kind of exercise I'm doing, what I'm eating, and how much food I'm eating. So it should be empowering for us to realize that the things that we're doing right now, if we shift them, can make a really profound impact on our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say for women who are dealing with symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, ignoring those and just focusing on the nutrition and the exercise is not what we're suggesting here either, because really what you want to do is try and navigate these things and get there are help for these things. What can we do to help you with these symptoms? Do you need to talk to your doctor? If you're having night sweats and hot flashes, is it a conversation with your doctor about menopause hormone therapy? If you're struggling with insomnia, not related to hot flashes, there's cognitive behavior therapy that's shown really can work well with it, that can be very effective. If you're really struggling with low energy, okay, what can we do to get you moving more? And where's the threshold where we can get you moving to that you still feel good, that doesn't zap your energy? So we can play around with that. And I'm not suggesting you ignore these symptoms, quite the opposite. We're going to work with those things. And as you problem solve these, and they're not necessarily all going to go away. I have clients that I've worked with for a really long time, and they were still not sleeping well. And they try as they might, and they're trying different things. It hasn't worked for them yet. Okay, so what can we do then? How can we help you still make good movement choices and good eating choices, even though you're tired? It's not like you have to wait till those symptoms get all better before you can improve your nutrition and your exercise, but let's work together with those things and work from both angles. What can we do to improve those things? And what can we do to help you, even though they're not improved yet?
Yeah. So my first symptoms of perimenopause were crippling anxiety and soul-crushing depression. And I tried to keep pushing through those things. I keep working out because it helps my mental health. But really, the end result was I go see a psychiatrist. I am on anti-anxiety and antidepressant meds that improve my quality of life dramatically. And they allow me to get sleep. As Kim said, I'm not in any way suggesting that people just pretend these things aren't happening or are happening. Yeah, like they are happening, but it really becomes a matter of what other resources or support can we get so that these aren't standing in the way of you being able to move forward. To tap into the medical professionals around you to see what options are out there for you.
Really think about it in terms of a holistic approach to your health and your wellness. Whatever your goals are in terms of getting stronger and looking a certain way, all of that, also look at that in terms of what is happening with you in menopause and perimenopause and what can we do to help all of those. And eating better and moving more is likely going to help with some of these things, but it's not going to get you all the way there. And if you did all these things perfectly as far as hot flashes and joint pain, but then you're not eating well and moving, that's not a good recipe either. So we really want to get all of those pieces of the puzzle working together so that you can feel your best, move your best, look your best, all of those things.
Yeah, and a lot of women come into this phase of life and they feel like they're lazy or they can't overcome the symptoms that they're experiencing. And they internalize that rather than reaching out for some support because these are actually symptoms that you might be able to get some help with. They just internalize it and think this is just the way it is. I'm just getting older. And I get why that is. I think a lot of times leading up to this point, there were a lot of medical professionals who were not well informed around menopause, that were not giving women options and not hearing them on their symptoms and being willing to work with them and offer them support. But I encourage any woman who's listening to this podcast, if you're experiencing that and you feel like you're not getting the support, that you need to look a little bit deeper and advocate for yourself, because these are symptoms now that can be helped. And at least look into what your options are. Don't assume you're the problem. See if there's a way that you can get additional support.
It's so true. And, in any realm, when you hear the words from anybody like, that's just how it is now that you're older, that's just not how it is now that you're in midlife, that's just how it is now that you're in menopause, I want you to know, like, that is not true. There is no, that's just how it is now. And I hear so many women come to me and they're like, well, yeah, I have this bum shoulder and that's just how it is at this age. And I'm like, that is not true. And people are shocked when and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you can go to a physical therapist and you can actually get more range of motion. And as you're working with a physical therapist, you and I can work around and get you really strong. And people are stunned because they really feel like their bum shoulder, their bum hip, their bum knee, like that's just how it is now. They feel like doctors have told them, well, of course you're gaining weight. That's what happens in midlife. And I'm like, okay, that's not an answer. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so do not accept the answer that that is just how it is. If you're not feeling well, whether it's with a certain body part, like I said, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, there's a lot that can be done, whether it's with your menopause symptoms, with your energy levels. Do not accept that's just how it is now because of your age or your menopause status.
Totally. All right. So any key takeaways? Anything else that you think that we should know?
Take some time and really think about what it is you want in life in terms of your physical health and look at where you're at and where you want to be, and then work to bridge that gap and have confidence that it absolutely can be bridged. It absolutely can be bridged. If you want to lose weight, if you want to look better, you want to feel better, all of that can happen in midlife without a doubt. Stick with basic things that we've talked about here, changing your nutrition sensibly, eating more protein, lifting weights, moving more. That is what works. There is no magic bullet. There's no particular program that you need specific. There's nothing out there that's going to be like, here's the magic bullet. There's a lot of things out there that can be good support to you to help you do those behaviors. And that I recommend. Working with a coach or somebody to help you do those behaviors and help them fit into your life, great. But trying to fit somebody else's workout protocol, super secret dietary regimen into your life, not necessary. Stop looking for it.
Yeah, totally agree. All right. So, Kim, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom. This has been such a fun conversation and so helpful. People can find you on your website, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and your podcast, which I love the name of, the Fitness Simplified Podcast. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
So we will link to all of those in the show notes so people can find you easily. So you also have a free 5-day fat loss crash course. Tell me about that.
Yes. And guys, sometimes the name sounds a little scammy. I promise I'm not trying to help you lose weight in 5 days. That's now what it is 5 days of education. It's a crash course. And what I was talking about here about the nutrition fundamentals and the workout fundamental gives you more specifics around the things that we've been talking about here so that over the course of 5 days, you have a really good basic plan to help you get started. So it's 5 days of education crash course. That's available and you can get that and we'll have the link to that as well.
All right, cool. So then you also have the Fitter After 48 week challenge. Can you tell me a little bit about that and how folks can get more information?
So I run that twice a year. I run it at the beginning of the fall and at the beginning of the spring, and we spend 8 weeks putting into practice the things I just talked about here. So I give you a training program. I give you nutrition guidelines that are going to fit into your life. And then the important part, we spend 8 weeks together helping you enact them in your life. How do I get from a life that's pretty sedentary to unlocking 7,500 or more steps? And I help coach you through those things. We coach you through the mindset blocks. I help coach you through I'm really busy. What do I do about that? We talk about how to get yourself at the top of your priority list. We talk about menopause hurdles. And so it is a program that is not just here's the program, but it's a program where we talk about putting it into practice and practicing your way to be the person you want to become. And we spend 8 dedicated weeks doing that.
Cool. And then the other way that people can work with you is through one-on-one online coaching. So tell me about that and who would be a good fit for that.
Yeah. So first of all, if it's not August, September time or March, April time, it's the only other way to work with me. That's when I run my challenges. Otherwise, I do one-on-one coaching. All those things I just talked about, we do it, but it's just you and I, which obviously then is a little bit of a higher price point because in my group programs, it's 50 to 90 people. We're all doing it together. But when it's one-on-one coaching, it's just you and I, and we look at your life, where you're at now, where you want to go, what are the hurdles standing in your way, and then we have a lot of time together where I help you figure out what you're going to do for workouts, what you're going to do for nutrition, what your hurdles are. And then you and I work together to overcome those and help you practice becoming the future version of you that you want to be.
Awesome. Excellent. Thanks again for being on the show. I really appreciate you being here and having this conversation with me.
Well, thanks for having me, Alison. It was really enjoyable.
And that's a wrap for this week's episode of the Fit Bottom Girls podcast. But don't worry, we're dropping new episodes every Thursday. In the meantime, head over to the show notes for all the links from today's episode, or go to fitbottomedgirls.com/podcast to catch up on past episodes. Thanks for being here. I'll see you next week.